Hi, I'm ED-SKaR, and today I'm doing just a quick, nice, simple cosmetic mod. And if you think that's going to stop me from spending a great deal of time talking about it, you've got another thing coming. If I was a proper YouTuber, I'd have an introduction right here, but I'm not, so I don't. So, the Worker Hurricane that was so generously donated to the channel by Nerfshack has seen some somewhat sort of aesthetic changes, such as the sights, which, to be honest, aren't entirely necessary, and the trigger and the kind of heel of the grip, but those were for ergonomics, but they do change the look of it as well. This time I'm going to be doing the whole thing and doing some paintwork as well, including I'm going to paint one of the magazines to match. Now, I've never tried to hide the fact that I'm a phenomenal nerd. In fact, I've done several videos on the Gaunt's Ghosts cosplay that I've sort of been working on for some time. Really need to get to actually finishing that. But, as part of the Gaunt's Ghosts cosplay, I'd really like to have a Laspistol. And the Worker Hurricane seems to fit the bill fairly well. As I kind of spoiled in one of my previous videos, I have the 3D printed las muzzle that I have on my Rapid Strike las guns. However, for a pistol, it's quite a bit bulky. It actually kind of suits the Worker Hurricane because the Worker Hurricane is quite bulky. However, just to make it a little bit more streamlined, I found in my bits box this thing. Now this, for anyone who doesn't recognise it, is the original muzzle from the Nerf Rebel Rapid Red. And I, of course, some time ago did some 3D modelling for the Rapid Red. And one of the benefits that I have of using this part is that I actually have two of them, because I have done two Rapid Reds in the same way. So I can keep one orange for the public games, or kind of semi-public games that require such things. Orange muzzles are not legally required in the United Kingdom, so that's kind of legally irrelevant, but it's still a recognisable symbol, and so handy to have around. But because the barrel of the Worker Hurricane is so easy to replace, what I can actually do is make two barrels and then use the second Rapid Red muzzle and paint it so that I have a realistically coloured one, which would be used for closed games on private land and LARPs and that sort of things, depending on what I get up to in the next... it really depends on what I get up to in the time that I own this thing. I don't know, I haven't done it yet because that's in the future. So of course I do need to put an Aquila on the side, so let's just quickly knock one off of the printer. Okay, let's, I've got a backup printer, let's try that one. Right. Maybe I've got something in my parts box? See, here's an Aquila I printed some time ago. Unfortunately, it's not ideal, it's broken, it's not printed very well. So I'm going to have to come up with an option for the Aquila, and it may result in me just painting it on the side by hand, which I guess is fine if it works. It might not. But before I actually do any of the painting itself, I need to go back to the thumb rest that I made for this thing previously. Now I made some cuts on the left-hand side of the shell so that I could raise my thumb up on top of it to get a nice two-handed grip, which is what I'm used to and I find comfortable. But it makes the whole thing lopsided and uneven, which I'm not a particular fan of. So I have already scored out the lines I need to cut, and I need to cut away at this side to make it symmetrical again. And then I use the same technique as I did previously with the 3D pen, and if you see any of the grey material there, it has been added in with the 3D pen and solvent welded into place to keep it still. Because I think that the 3D pen is actually an excellent tool for gap filling. And actually, even on the sights here, and I'll probably get a better view of that, there's just a little spot of grey there, and I'll explain that when I take it apart, because it's very small and not very easy to see from kind of this view. So that's more than enough drivelling on, which honestly could be the title of my channel. So before I go on to sand and do the paint job, which is going to be a phenomenally simple kind of 2 or 3 coats of spray cans, I want to look at the point I made about using the 3D pen here. So I designed to slot in over the top surface of the shell. So to fit them in, you have to cut the hole like that and file it. I suggest cutting a smaller hole and then using a file to bring it up little bit by little bit until you get it in the right place. However, when I first started, this first surface here that I cut actually was behind the screw port. So when I put the sight in, well, I couldn't put the sight in because the screw port was in the way. So I moved it forwards, so I got this surface correct. And then I used the 3D pen just to block out that edge that I'd already cut. Solvent weld over it, and then use the Dremel to sand it all down again until it fit and it doesn't wobble with the front sight, with the rear sight anymore. And all it takes to fit these sights is to cut the holes in the right place, and then as you assemble it, you just slot them on one side like so. And then the other side of the shell goes together like that. And depending on how you've cut the holes, they should be relatively secure. Alright, I'm going to go off and sand this thing, which is going to take forever, of course, and be terribly boring, so I'm not going to bother recording it. So here we have that painted, and I realised halfway through painting that I still have a whole host of transfers from my Warhammer 40k days. So I thought, why not just move an Aquila from one of the transfer sheets directly onto the pistol. And it's come out acceptably, and the kind of thumb rests on the side, as well as filling in the switch at the back. Now I'm not entirely happy with how this has come out. It's somewhat messy. However, there's a lot of places where it's kind of indistinguishable from the kind of the sanded surface of the main shell. So what I really need to do is just get some practice so that next time I don't leave so many gaps, or come up with techniques and things to fill those gaps as I'm going, so that when it's then sanded down, it forms a nice smooth surface. This isn't anywhere near as smooth as a decent epoxy job. Furthermore, there's the barrel. So this is the Rapid Red muzzle that I've cut the screw ports of, and I'm not convinced. It's kind of, in comparison to the rest of the pistol, very long and spindly and doesn't really necessarily work aesthetically. So I could go back to my original las gun muzzle intended for the Rapid Strike. This just being a bit chunkier, a bit wider, just suits the Work Hurricane a little bit better. Also, if I was to seat it all the way back against the shell, it also doesn't have the spindly barrel thing going on, and I do actually think that looks better than the Rapid Red muzzle, so I'm probably going to stick with this one. One mistake I feel I've made is the worker logo on the grip, which remains. Now, I'm not afraid of the worker logo. I'm also not afraid of the Nerf logo. In fact, in some builds, I have gone to great lengths to maintain the logo of the original manufacturer. However, for a cosplay build like this, it doesn't seem appropriate, and usually I would either obliterate that or replace it with the Aquila or the Adeptus Mechanicus symbol, something like that, but I actually forgot in this case. I didn't really realise it was there. I did think about it and then I forgot, and then I remembered again when I came to paint the grip. So it's still got worker logo on it. I don't really care, it's not that big of a deal. I did also put on a little indicator there. It's just a little skull transfer, so that as the ammunition is depleted from the magazine, that rolls around, and when it's upright, you're out of ammo. And some more transfers I put on this side. I put a 2 and an arrow, and there was originally an arrow on the magazine as well, but these transfers are bad, ancient. Yeah, they're not great. So the ones on the magazine have actually fallen off. The 2 is significant because in the 5th of the Gaunt's Ghost books, The Guns of Tanith, there is a sequence where the Tanith First and Only are issued the wrong type of magazine for their last carbines. Size 5 instead of size 3. And of the first stage of an invasion, what you really don't want is to be running short of ammunition. However, one of the characters, Colm Corbeck, is using a Laspistol and has plentiful supply of size 2 las clips for the pistol. So that's a little bit of tie-in to the books. There's also handwritten Memory of Tanith on there. And this is the rapid red muzzle that has been painted for the more realistic look. Again, I live in the United Kingdom, so an orange muzzle has no legal basis here. This would be considered a realistic imitation firearm, and I have legal permission to build it. Which is unfortunate, as most nerfers don't have permission to build something like this because it looks too real, and it actually is against the law, when a law's ever sensible. However, that's now done, painted, and looking good. I'm ED-SKaR, always have been, and thank you very much for watching.